You're traveling through another dimension. A dimension not only of sight and sound, but of mind. A journey into the wondrous land whose boundaries are that of imagination. There's a signpost up ahead. Your next stop? A podcast.
That's what it says, folks.
Your next stop? A podcast. Podcast, Minnesota. Anyway, this is No Nerds Allowed.
Everyone in Podcast Minnesota has their own podcast. It is a living hell.
Town where the currency is not cold hard cash, but shitty takes on movies.
Where everyone you meet will not stop talking about their own individual podcast. And when you pull up the webpage, there's more than 100 episodes, and they're all bad. This is The Twilight Zone.
The Twilight Zone. I like doing Rod Stewart. It's a fun impression to do.
Twilight Zone.
Next stop. The Twilight Zone. Next stop. Bad opinions.
Lukewarm takes. Do you think... I just like to imagine him as just like a bus driver. Just like, next stop. The Rose Hours, which is a grocery store that's maybe only in Spokane. I don't know.
I should have done that. I was briefly I drove the tour train for the park in downtown Spokane. I got to do it for like 4 days before the train broke.
Before they wouldn't let you do it anymore.
Yeah, this is like the worst thing in the world. Literally, I trained for like 2 weeks to run the tour train, and then I did it for 2 days, and then on the third day the train broke. And then they just got rid of the train. So,
and then they threw it right in the toilet.
But anyway, that should have been a gag that I did when we were wrapping up the tour. I would have been like, you're traveling to another dimension. And just, I don't know, that wouldn't have been funny.
It's the front of the park.
Next stop. The park.
The park that you are in. There's only one park.
Next stop. The Ferris wheel.
But it's like a spooky Ferris wheel. You like can't you get on it and then you can't get off of it. And then when you do get off of it, all of your friends are like old.
Whoa. Wait, does that happen in that episode of The Twilight Zone?
Wait, hold on. Am I describing an actual episode of The Twilight Zone?
Isn't there one where there's a bus you can never get off of?
Oh, I'm sure. That's also a Game Grumps goof. Hey, I think the thing about The Twilight Zone is that the episodes that are famous because they're really good. I think the rest of them are kind of hot garbage, actually.
I've never really watched it.
Every once in a while, Dad will watch it when I'm in the room, and there was one where this guy, like, went to the circus, and there was, like, a cat woman. That's it. That's the episode.
That sounds pretty frightening to me. What, are you saying you were comfortable with that?
Well, it was just a lady in, like, a 1950s, like, sexy cat outfit. It wasn't, like...
Imagine if you saw that, though.
A lady in a cat Halloween costume?
Yeah, when you weren't expecting it.
I would be like, hey, it's cold outside. Are you okay?
You would be quite afraid, would you not be?
I would not be afraid. There was also another episode where these people... This is probably a more famous one, but they go to a restaurant that has, like, a little fortune teller on the table. But all of the fortunes that it says are true. They all come true.
Wow.
But nothing happens because of it, though. They just realize that whenever... it just, like, all of its predictions are true.
Did you ever watch any of the Jordan Peele Twilight Zone?
No, I heard it was not great.
Yeah, me too. And it's one of those things that's like, and, you know, everybody was kind of saying the same thing. It's like, you know, there's a whole bunch of these, and, like, there are a couple of them that are really good, but the rest of them are just, like, nobody really cares. Yeah. Which is, you know, just like how the original Twilight Zone was.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it is.
So it's like, I don't know, that makes me want to, like, give it a shot, but I've never gotten around to it.
It's like Doctor Who. There are a lot of really good ones, but there's just as many really, really bad ones.
Exactly. No, yeah, precisely. Hey, Adeline.
Yeah?
What's your favorite Halloween candy?
I like, if we're talking like, are we talking like Halloween TM candy, then I like candy corn.
Well, what do you like to get? You're going trick-or-treating with all your friends. I'm setting up a scenario for you, okay?
Like, I just like pick a, I get.
No, okay, shush. No, let me build this world for you, okay? I'm
Okay.
painting you a mind picture.
Okay.
You're traveling through another dimension.
God.
Sorry, no, I'm gonna take this seriously.
Okay.
You're out trick-or-treating with your friends.
Yes.
You are dressed as a cat lady from the 50s.
Oh God.
Your friends are dressed as
Also a cat lady from the 50s.
as Rod Stewart from
We're
the
dressed
Twilight
as the
Zone.
cast of cats.
Your friend is dressed up like Rod Stewart from the Twilight Zone. The costume is just a suit, but then he just shows up when you're not expecting him to.
He like sidesteps out from behind signs and stuff.
Anyway, you knock on the door. The woman is wearing an arrow through her head, like one of those headbands.
Yeah.
And you think to yourself, that's not really as funny as she thinks it is.
Yeah.
She holds out some candy in a closed fist and drops it into your basket. You look inside and you say, "Oh fuck yeah!" What is that candy?
It's a Kit Kat. Got any more scenarios for me?
No, it's okay. Do you want to talk about the movie or do you want to talk about Halloween some more?
Let's talk about the movie. So this week, for continuing our spooktacular spook fest, we watched Coraline because Jackson didn't want to watch The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah, true. Absolute truth. I was way more into this movie than I thought I was going to be.
Oh, I know. This movie
TBH.
is really good.
Yeah, no, like, it's just, there's something about it. I mean, mostly it's just because I really, excuse me, I have to burp a couple of times, so I'm going to take that from the start.
Please edit this out.
Every time you ask me to edit something out, it just makes it that much more likely that I definitely won't.
Yeah, I know, but
I just want you to know.
But then we have stupid gaps in our podcast, and then when I listen back to them, I'm like, wow, I really wish that Jackson had edited that out, because there's just like 10 seconds of dead air. Please edit this part out, Jackson.
Okay, look. I always edit out dead air. What I don't edit out is when I burp or something, and then you ask me to edit it out.
Why? That's what you should be editing out.
No. Jackson. But it's just like this is kind of a hot take. And
Okay.
I feel like this is going to be a controversial opinion and maybe I'll get educated a little bit later.
Okay.
But like in the world of like highbrow animation, whether that's like stop motion Leica stuff or like cartoon saloon like 2D like masterpieces, I tend to feel like the like actual plot and characters and storytelling of it sort of take a backseat to just like this lush world and like beautiful technical animation.
Oh yeah, no, I totally get that.
Okay. 'Cause like I've seen like 3 out of the 4 cartoon saloon movies that exist, and I've kind of not liked all of them.
Remind me what Cartoon Saloon is? Are they
They're
people
like-
trying to bring back 2D animation? Or?
Yeah, there's Secret of Nim and Song of the Sea and The
Oh,
Breadwinner.
I love them. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I don't really like their movies very much, to be honest. I mean, they're very pretty and gorgeous, and they've got a strong creative voice, but like in terms of like the actual stories they're telling, I'm always like,
That's very
okay.
true. Yeah.
I'll
No, I
kind of
get
look at my
that.
phone.
If you put a gun to my head and you were like, name any of the characters' names from Song of the Sea, I could not tell you.
Right? Yeah, exactly. But I don't feel that with this movie though.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like I don't know, and maybe it's partially because it's an adaptation, right? It's an adaptation of Neil
Yeah,
Gaiman's
the story isn't
book.
all they're doing. Yeah.
Right. So it's like they took all that creative energy and put it on top of a story that already exists that is really good, rather than like building their own to animate, you know?
And this might just be a stuck-up opinion because I really like stop motion as an art form, but like I feel like that kind of not it's not snobbiness. It's just putting a lot of emphasis on your visuals, so much so that sometimes the story gets left behind.
Right.
And I think because stop motion is such like so like kind of tactile and so kind of like crafty, I don't get that as much, especially with Leica films. Like I love like Paranorman and all that stuff. Like I know a lot of those characters' names and I know a lot of stuff going on. And even though there is a lot of that like, oh, look at what we're doing with the animation, but because it's stop motion, it feels more like, and maybe it's because stop motion has always had to kind of like fight to like be an art form, you know?
Right.
That like, I don't know, I don't get that kind of like, I don't feel like you lose anything through the technical stuff, you know?
And I think I'm being a little bit harsh on Leica because now that I'm actually thinking about it, I think besides this, the only movie of theirs I've actually seen was The Missing Link.
Yeah, I didn't even see The Missing Link, Jackson.
Yeah, which everybody said was pretty much not that good for exactly the reasons I said. It was just like really boring. Like it was gorgeous, but like nobody seemed to really care that much about anything they were really saying with it.
And it did badly because it didn't do the one thing that all stop motion movies have to do, which is to be about something even a little bit vaguely creepy, and they didn't do it.
But I heard that Kubo was kind of that way too, though.
Oh no, Kubo's got some scary stuff in it, dude.
Right. Or no, I mean just like that, like in terms of plot and writing, it's a little thin, but like it's just this gorgeous, wonderful piece of technical achievement.
I pride myself on being like the stop motion girl, but like I have not seen Kubo yet because I was waiting to see it in theaters with a friend, but then that friend, like our schedules never lined up, so we didn't see it, and I just like never saw it.
I thought you had seen Kubo. It seemed maybe it was Mom that saw Kubo. I was talking to somebody.
Someone's seen Kubo.
That I felt a familial relationship with.
I love them as Kubo. A sister. It was not my sister, as it turns out.
It wasn't Anna. Who was it that saw Kubo and was telling me about it?
It was probably Anna. Anna's animation girl.
No, I would have remembered if it were Anna, though.
Well, you get me and Anna confused when you're like, I talked to somebody about this. It's really either me or Anna.
Well, that happens a lot because you have similar interests.
We do.
Don't read into that. There's nothing there. But, like, yeah, I don't know. Basically, the point I'm trying to make is just that I really like this movie, and I felt myself, like, deeply...
I would shit on some other people to establish the fact that I really like this movie.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. When you say it like that, it makes me sound like an idiot, but, like... I like this movie, and I feel like there are a lot of movies like it that don't do, like, their storytelling and their character development as well as this movie does.
What I love about this story, like, just as a whole, is that I love, like, these, like, it's not, like, this movie isn't a horror movie. It's just, like, a kind of, like, a horror-adjacent adventure, you know? And there are a lot of stories like that, especially with, like, young girls. And I love this movie just, like, tells that kind of story just, like, perfectly in such a satisfying way. Like, you get the spooks, you get the character development, and it, like, all wraps up in a really nice way. And in a really happy way, which I think is kind of very vital to those kind of horror-adjacent stories, is, like, we want a happy ending.
I would argue... And I will argue once we get towards the end of the movie.
Gotcha.
When I've like built my case a little bit more. But I would argue that this is absolutely a horror movie. Like, it's a horror movie for kids, obviously.
Yeah.
But in terms of the plot and like sort of the structure of it, I think it's basically indistinguishable from the majority of like traditional horror films.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the thing that like people say about certain movies a lot. It's like, oh, it's like a horror movie, but for kids. But like, Actually, I think this is like really and truly a horror movie for kids. And I feel like when you say horror movie, a lot of people like read that to mean like it's bad.
Yeah.
But, like, because
we immediately go to like slasher, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. I would argue that this is a very, very good horror movie that is also for kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
What's so weird about Coraline is that even, like, from its inception, like, I mean, that was the thing about Coraline, is that it was like, it's a kid's movie, but don't take your kids to it, because it's super, super scary.
Right.
But what was so interesting about that was that parents thought that Coraline was horrifying, but kids were not that scared by it.
Right.
And I just think that's really interesting. It's just, like, it is like it's versus like seeing yourself as the protagonist versus being an adult and looking at the child as a protagonist. I think it's just really interesting how that gets changed depending on what the point of view is. I thought that was really interesting.
Right, yeah. And I think that, like, you know, it's really interesting to me, like, living in the world that, like, there are some kids who, like, their families, it was like a tradition and things that families would do together to, like, see horror movies together. Like, I've known people in my life who are like, oh yeah, like me, and when I was like 6 or 7 and my siblings were whatever age, my family would like all get together in the living room and watch like Nightmare on Elm Street, or like, you know, it was never anything like super high concept, but like schlocky horror movies, you know, because like, and obviously like depending on the kid, but like kids like to get scared, you know, like I feel like there's a market just depending, just I don't know, just like how not all adults want to get scared in a movie, but some do. I think the same could be said for kids, right? Like, and I think obviously there's a gradation of like what kinds of things are healthy for them to see, which ones aren't. But like in general, like I don't think being scared is like bad for kids if it's in a situation like that where they enjoy it, you know. And it's just so weird because that's so like opposite of the way that we were raised, but it like was really important and like a fond memory for a lot of people too. I just think that's really interesting.
And I mean, I think you'd like totally nailed the hammer on the head. Like, it's very important what kind of horror that it is, because I think what kind of horror it is like totally depends on how the child accepts it. Like this Coraline is like removed enough from reality that even though it is scary, it's like it's about a specific enough situation and it's resolved in such a way that it's not like it's scary, but not in like a lasting way, versus showing a kid a movie that's like, hey, murderers are real and they want to murder you. That's very close to reality and something that might actually scare them for a very long time. Right.
Honestly, I feel like sort of those like schlocky, like supernatural horror movies, like things like Chucky or like things like Nightmare on Elm Street are like that perfect butter zone. Like, you know, they're violent, but not like in a realistic kind of way, you know? And it's like not, it's something that they know is not real. It's like a complete fiction, you know? Like, if I had a kid who was like, oh, I really love being scared, like I want to watch scary movies, I would be like, okay, let's take a look at, that would be like where I would start, is like stuff that's...
If like, they're like 12, not like...
Right, well, but that's even what I'm saying, though. Like, the people I'm referring to, like, were watching these kinds of movies when they were very young, like, with their families. True, but they, like, I don't know. Well, whatever. Just, everybody's going to raise their kid differently.
I'm just not the one to have this conversation for, because I was the kid who hid behind the couch during Elf, so I don't know what you want from me.
Right, yeah. So the first thing that I have written down in this movie is that, like... It's like a weirdly ballsy move to just like open your movie with like credits like this one does. Like they're not doing anything to try to like sell you right off the bat. They're just like Coraline, starring Dakota Fanning, John Hodgman.
Well, it's because there's so much ambiance and like there's so much like happening that like you are kind of like immediately drawn in. It's like it's Coraline, but like the background is all like cool and old and super detailed, right? And there's a super weird, freaky music. The music in this movie is so crazy. And then like immediately going to that sequence of the doll being turned into the Coraline doll, which is just it's such a scary sequence. Like it's done so well, and like how to like have like basically. They're not really telling you anything. They're kind of telling you the credits. I mean, you realize what's happening in that scene after you watch the movie, but like, like what's happening visually is just so interesting to look at that like they can just be like, hey, here's some credits. Right. Please don't be mad.
Yeah, and I think that like opening sequence is like, I think one of the most deeply, and I mean, just again in my treatise that like this is absolutely a horror movie. It's like, it's starting you off with something that's scary and unnerving. Like, it's setting the tone. It's like, this movie exists, you know, it exists as a story and it has meaning in that sense, but primarily it's here to scare you, like, to get your adrenaline going and, like, actually be something that's meant to be creepy and scary, you know? 'Cause Yeah, because it's almost like it's the closest thing you can get to like body horror, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just this doll and they're like ripping open the mouth like from ear to ear and like turning it inside out and like sewing things up and it's
Whitewashing this doll.
yeah, but it's so weird because it's like it's clearly an inanimate object and somebody's just making a doll, but the way that it's sort of not necessarily like just framed in terms of like where it is in the actual camera, but just the way it's presented is the word I'm looking for. Like the way it's presented, it's inherently like you're imagining this as a person, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, that's another good thing about stop motion is that a part of gore, I mean, depending on what you're trying to do and what kind of story you're trying to tell, but like the point of gore is to make it as realistic as possible. And that's just not something that you can do in stop motion. But you know what you can do in stop motion? Make threads and needles and textures and fabric look like real life.
Right.
So even though, well, because it literally is real life. So to have this like super realistic depiction of a doll being torn apart makes you think, it makes that connection to like an actual like human being torn apart like that much stronger because the doll looks so real as a doll, like with the fabric.
Right. So one of the things that I really want to sort of talk about briefly in this movie, or I don't know, it doesn't have to be briefly, is just that this is like the only like Henry Selick directed like animated film where he's not associated with Tim Burton at all. Like Tim Burton's not involved because Nightmare Before Christmas and James and the Giant Peach both are like Tim Burton produced and or in one case based on a Tim Burton work, right? So like really Tim Burton's voice is like the strongest
it's just
one.
Screaming into the sky.
He's like he's the auteur behind it, even if he's not the director, right? Mm-hmm. And the same can be said for James and the Giant Peach, not quite on the same level, but just also. But I think it's really interesting to look at Coraline because I think it's the time when like his specific particular voice gets to shine through. And it's interesting how, like, actually dissimilar it is from Tim Burton's, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Tim Burton's, I went through a big Tim Burton phase, so I know a lot about his art and his art style. Tim Burton likes to make things look really, really creepy, and then he tries to humanize them, and in that humanization, he tells a story about humans through something that's really creepy.
Right.
What Henry Selick does is he just kind of takes reality and he exaggerates it a little bit, but like you still just see the person, and so the stories are usually a lot more human.
Right. And yeah, I've been thinking a lot about Tim Burton lately, just because like
he's so dreamy.
He's so dreamy. He's just such a big hunk, but like, with that hair that he has and how it always looks like he hasn't shaved in like 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, it just looks like he slept on the pavement outside your house.
Yeah, big hunk Tim Burton is. But like, I think that like really this is the train of thought I was having. I was thinking about a series of unfortunate events, right? And how it, for a lot of kids, was like this introduction to like postmodern storytelling, right? It's a piece of work that like has a really, is self-aware, but it has like a really distinct and creative voice, and it was like so radically different from other like children's chapter books that it like made a really, really strong artistic impression on a lot of people, right? Like you're reading it and he's like leaving things unexplained and you are 7 years old and you're like, what the fuck? You can just do that? You can just think? Yeah, you can just not tell me stuff? That's allowed? Like, it like opens up this whole new world to you.
This isn't the Hardy Boys, motherfucker.
Exactly. But I feel like Tim Burton sort of scratches that same itch for a lot of people, even necessarily before. Because he's the only like auteur filmmaker with a really, really distinct style who works almost exclusively in like family entertainment, right? There's not really anybody else except for like maybe Wes Anderson, who has like a really distinct voice that like even kids can like know and understand. Like the reason why Tim Burton is still so much part of the cultural like subconscious, even though he hasn't made a good movie since like 2002.
Leave him alone.
It's just because like he's so important to so many people and like their creative development. He's like almost everybody is like he's their first taste into like auteur filmmaking, and I think that's really fascinating.
Yeah. Stop calling me out, Jackson.
Right. Well, yeah, everybody. I mean, myself included. Like, you know, I never really had a Tim Burton phase, but like it was something I really picked up on like when I was younger and wasn't quite like into movies yet. Yeah, hold on. I'm looking at Tim Burton's filmography and I'm going to sort them by order and I'm going to see what the last good movie he made was.
I mean, he definitely improved Dumbo because he gave that one guy a robot arm.
Right, Colin Farrell. Okay.
If there was anything missing from the Dumbo story, it was a robot arm.
So here's me working backwards, okay? Most recent, Dumbo. Thumbs down. Before that, Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. Remember that
for
movie?
Weird kids. People
Big
like
Eyes.
that.
No, they don't. Don't lie to yourself.
People who like that book like that movie.
Yeah, I guess. It's not like a good
but
movie,
people
though.
who like that book are very specific people.
Okay, let me ask you something.
Yeah.
After the marketing campaign for that movie ended, when was the last time you thought about it?
I was talking to some lady who was around Mom's age, and she was talking about Mrs. Pettigrew's House for Weird Kids.
Before that, Big Eyes, which was that biopic about that artist starring Amy Adams.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know, I guess was pretty okay, but it, like, wasn't...
Did you see it?
No. It, like... I'm just, like, gauging, like, the general response to it.
Consensus, yeah.
Like, I'm seeing, like, when was the last time that Tim Burton made a movie that people were, like really passionate about?
Made a bop, yeah.
Yeah.
How long ago was Big Fish?
That was a hot second ago. So then next before Big Eyes was Frankenweenie, which I guess an argument can be made for.
I love Frankenweenie.
I would still argue that it's not a cultural tentpole, though.
It's just a part of the tentpole that was already Tim Burton. Like, it's just like another example of him being good.
Dark Shadows, just that movie where it's just like Johnny Depp is a vampire, and that's the whole thing of it, I guess.
Oh, is that? Oh, I remember that. People like that movie. That's like people.
No, Adeline, people hate that movie.
I thought that was like. I'm getting it confused with Things We Do in the Shadows.
Oh yeah, no, different movie. Dark Shadows, like nobody saw it, and everyone hates it. It's
gotcha.
got, it's like they're doing. I don't even know what they're doing. It's just like literally the whole pitch is just like, hey, I'm Tim Burton. You guys like me, and I could still kind of make money. What if I got Johnny Depp and he just was a vampire, and we kind of make it up as we go along?
He just like walked up and he's like, hey, I'm Tim Burton. And they were like, just make your movie.
Yeah.
Just go over there.
Before that is Alice in Wonderland.
Which one? Oh, he didn't do the second one, so the OG.
No, yeah, just the original one. Okay, I would say maybe the last good movie he made was Sweeney Todd. That was before Alice in Wonderland.
I haven't seen Sweeney Todd. People
I haven't
like
either,
Sweeney Todd.
but it's a popular and beloved movie, right? That was 2007.
Did he also do Sleepy Hollow?
Yes, but that was much earlier. That was 1999.
God, Big Fish is so good. I'm sorry.
Because like look at this filmography. We've been talking about Tim Burton for a really long time, despite the fact that he's not a part of the movie we're talking about.
Henry.
But like look at like his first few movies. Like
Are you sending me a link?
No. I'm just gonna say it. Like he just can't lose. He starts with Pee-wee's Big Adventure. He moves on to Beetlejuice.
Very good.
From there to Batman.
Very.
Which is, I don't know, it's got kind
Debatable.
of a reevaluation, but it was an enormous success, right?
Yes, depends. If you ask a different nerd boy, he will give you a different opinion. Yeah. But
Edward Scissorhands.
Very
Batman
good.
Returns. Which is, like, a weirdly beloved movie I found recently. Like,
is that
myself...
Is that the one with Catwoman in it?
Yes.
And the Penguin?
Uh-huh. Where Danny DeVito plays the Penguin.
Yeah, which is, oh god, it's so good. I just know that movie because for some reason, every time our family gets a hotel, if we turn on the TV, that movie will be playing.
It's just one of those movies. After that is Ed Wood, which I haven't seen, but I've heard is like one of those things that's like, oh, an underrated gem that like people don't talk about enough.
Which one is that one?
It's a biopic of a real director who just like...
Oh, I've heard of that one. Yeah.
Yeah, who just like made really, really shitty movies in the 50s.
Yeah.
But Tim Burton made this biopic where he was just like, he's my role model.
Yeah, I love this dude in his shitty movies, which is honestly a movie. That's me about Tim Burton.
Right.
And
And
I
then
love this
like,
dude in his shitty movies.
so then after that is like Mars Attacks, which is pretty divisive.
Mars Attacked was robbed.
And then Sleepy Hollow, which people really like.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would say he gets like his first like substantial bomb, and that's Planet of the Apes starring Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah.
And then we've got Big Fish, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Corpse Bride, Sweeney Todd. I would argue all of those are pretty, like, Big Fish is great, but the rest of them are, like, pretty solid, you know?
Don't start talking shit about Corpse Bride. You can catch these hands.
Okay, sorry that me saying it's pretty solid wasn't passionate
good
enough
Jackson.
And yeah, then he just can't seem to get it together after that.
And then you got your sophomore slump, but it's just the rest of his life.
Yeah. When's he gonna have his big comeback? Like,
God, I would love, see, that's one of those things where it's like, I would just love it if Tim Burton just like came out with just like a bop, just like out of nowhere.
Because it's not even like he's getting like bogged down in like giant studio stuff.
No.
Like he's still making like original properties for the most part. Like Dark Shadows and Big Eyes and Miss Peregrine's Dumb House for Idiot Kids are like they're not like big franchises or anything. They're just like kind of his ideas and like things that he wants to do, but he still isn't like doing a good job at it.
Yeah. I like how you specifically didn't talk about The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Well, he didn't direct that though.
Oh, that's true. That was Henry.
Yeah, because that was Henry.
Yeah,
anyway,
that's why everyone thinks Coraline is a Tim Burton movie, because it's by the director of The Nightmare Before Christmas, and everyone thinks it's Tim Burton, but it's not. It's my boy Henry.
Right. So, but yeah, let's get back to it. Let's get back to.
I think Coraline is one of the most like effective and like really good like depictions of a little girl that I've ever seen. Like she's just like the perfect amount of like weird but still like sweet and like naive, but like without seeming unintelligent. Like she's just like such a good depiction of a little girl.
I think, because it took me a hot second to figure out what this movie's about, but I think I've got a pretty good handle on it, which is just that like the movie is because basically Coraline is just like incredibly selfish, right? Mm-hmm. Like her family's doing their best, and everyone around her, like, is being perfectly personable to her.
Very nice, yeah.
But, like, she is just, like, grumpy and doesn't care about anything if it's not exactly what she wants, right? So, like, she gets shown this world where, like, everything is all about her. Like, the entire world revolves around her. Like, the family makes great food and they sing songs about her, and her neighbors that make lame art that she doesn't like all of a sudden are making art that she likes that is all about her with her name in it all over the place. Like, it's almost like this cautionary tale of, like, be careful what you wish for. Like, the world revolves around you. Everything's about you now.
I think that's literally the tagline for the trailer.
Is it really? Be careful what you wish for?
So you know.
Hold on.
I would put money down.
I don't think so. Hold on. Coraline trailer.
I think it might be the tagline for maybe every movie ever made, but also maybe for Coraline.
Let's see.
You can put that in front of literally anything, and you'd be like, you know what? That's deep, bro.
Cars 2. Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, that's because Mater wants to be a spy, but then it's hard, so he does learn.
That's true. I was also thinking it could be like directed at the audience too. Like,
yeah,
hey,
you thought you wanted a car sequel, but turns out you don't.
I'm scrolling. It's
just gonna be 2 hours of Larry the Cable Guy talking to British people, and that's it.
Did you know that? Who's the guy in Cars 2? It was somebody really surprising. Who's the second lead in Cars 2? Just a sec.
He's like,
Michael Caine. Michael Caine was the spy in Cars 2.
Michael.
I mean, Michael's famous for, like, doing shitty movies sometimes. But, like, still, it was like, how could this be?
What, Michael?
I mean, he was also, like, I don't know, he's just got a reputation of being a working actor. You know, he's in a lot of really great things, but, like, he was in Jaws 4. He was in Cars 2.
Well, that's what I always say. It's like, if I was an actor, I would, like, absolutely just, like, be in every shitty movie that I could be in.
He was a prominent role in Sherlock Gnomes.
Oh, my God.
Let's see.
God. You know what sucks? I remember genuinely enjoying Romeo and Juliet.
That's what I've heard, actually. I've heard a lot of people say, like, it's actually not so horrible.
Like, it's a fun take on the story. Like, it's cheesy, but it's not bad. And, like, the animation's fun. The stylization is fun. Like, it's not bad.
Right.
I fucking hate Sherlock Gnomes or whatever it's called. Why did they do that? Hey, Benedict Cumberbatch, why did you do that?
No, that was Johnny Depp.
Oh, Jonathan, stop. We're gonna take away Johnny Depp's acting card for like a year and just let him chill.
Yeah,
like
make him appreciate it.
Yeah, go make him be just a regular ass person for like a year, and then maybe he'll come back and start doing good movies again.
I would argue that we need to do the same thing to Tim Burton also.
Also, yeah, Johnny Depp did separate vacations because they'll just run around in circles together.
It's just like, Tim Burton, don't make a movie for like 3 years.
Yeah.
Like, have some ideas, decide which ones are actually good before you act on them, and then come back.
Johnny Depp, just go live in a regular house in, like, a suburban area for, like, 5 years, like, and then maybe you'll be a regular person again.
Just don't beat your wife for, like, 6 months.
For, like, 10 seconds, dude. Come on.
It's so funny. Anyway. So, yeah, and one of the things that I was thinking about when I was thinking about, like, Henry Selick's voice versus Tim Burton's, is that Henry Selick is real into bugs.
Oh, yeah, dog.
And, like, you think about bugs when you think about James and the Giant Peach and Nightmare Before Christmas, but, like...
Yeah, there was no reason for Oogie Boogie to be made out of bugs. I think Henry Selick just really wanted to have a big old guy made of bugs.
Right, because Tim Burton's not really that into bugs. Like, outside of his Henry Selick movies, I can't think of any bug-based Tim Burton gags.
I mean, there's some bugs in Beetlejuice, but that's just because he's, like, gross and dead.
That's true. Beetlejuice
like,
is pretty buggy.
He eats a fly or something.
Yeah. I should watch Beetlejuice again. I wonder if that movie holds up.
It does. The animation does not hold up, but the rest of it does.
Right, yeah.
There's this moment where they're like on the sands of Mars, because that's one of the ghost rules, I guess. Sometimes you go to Mars. But there's, like, the sandworms that are, like, super stylized and, like, on every piece of Beetlejuice art.
That's right,
there.
yeah.
But they're, like, they don't look good.
Right.
They're not good.
So, yeah, and I mean, that's... really my, I don't know, I'm just trying to think about how I would describe this movie's tone as contrasted to Tim Burton's, because, like, this movie doesn't have the same sort of heightened reality that, like, Tim Burton is known for, right?
Yeah, there's, like an underlying level of fantasy.
Yeah, because, like, even when Tim Burton is doing, like, Edward Scissorhands and he, like, wants things to be mundane, it's still, like, weirdly fantastical at the same time, right?
Yeah.
It's, like, the 50s, but also modern day, and everybody, like, has these crazy haircuts, and you're like, oh, this is the normal we're deviating from? Okay, if you say so.
Oh, is this what real life is? Okay.
But Coraline, when she's in her, like, humdrum day-to-day... It's, like, it's very much, like, I mean, they're all grotesque stop-motion people, but, like, it's not, like, they're not making any weird decisions about, like, the state of reality, you know?
Yeah. And, I mean, that's one of those things that, with character design, you kind of have to be careful of, and you get into the, oh, God, what's his name? The animator that I hate.
I don't know what you're referring to.
80s. God. Anastasia.
Oh, Don Bluth.
Don Bluth. You fall into the Don Bluth trap of despair, which is that people who are attractive are good guys and people who are unattractive are bad guys. Like, you have, when you're like stylizing a person and, like, kind of exaggerating the traits that make them them, you kind of have to be careful that you're not being a jerk about it, you know?
Right. Well,
I feel like this movie... I feel like this movie does a pretty good job of that. Like, the mom, like, looks like a mom without being this weird sexist depiction of, like, a housewife or anything. Like, they do good jobs of, like, exaggerating traits without being assholes about it.
But yeah, I don't know, that's what's so weird, is that, like, in stop motion, it seems like the character design is always so exaggerated that nobody ever just, like, looks like a regular attractive person. They've always got like a weird neck or like grotesquely fat or like something.
Yeah, they've always got a big belly and skinny legs. Like that's just how it is. Okay, I was about to say how well this movie does it, except for the dad. The dad skeeves me out. Like his
you
neck.
You don't like his neck? Yeah.
I hate it. It skeeves me out. I'm skeeved.
That's yeah, I don't know, sometimes you just get skeeved. You gotta learn to live with the skeeve sometimes, I think.
But I'm supposed to like the dad, and I don't like looking at him.
I was trying to, like, riff on that joke, but what it turned into was basically just me being like, were you triggered by the dad's neck? And
Wow.
Yeah, I agree. The neck is gross.
Yeah. Okay, this is skipping forward a little bit, but it's what drives me insane. So there's that scene in where she's in the other world, she's talking to the other father, and he starts singing that song about Coraline. That's, like, definitely the singer from They Might Be Giants, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, good.
They wrote that song.
Okay, did they?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Because I was like, oh, that sounds exactly like the guy from They Might Be Giants, and I couldn't place my finger on it.
Yeah. And which is weirdly, like, the second time that John Linnell has been a voice double for somebody, including the most important time when he was the voice double for the Poopsmith in Homestar Runner.
but They Might Be Giants and Homestar Runner were buds. They did stuff all the time. But yeah, back to where we are in the movie. Yeah.
Well, it cracks me up because they're, like, renting this house, right? And then, like, Coraline finds this, like, little door, and she's like, Mom, can you, like, open this up and see what's up? And the mom's just like, yeah, okay, sure. And then just, like, rips the fuck out of the wallpaper. It's like, you can't do that. Like, it's not your house.
Just tears the wallpaper off the door. Yeah.
But, like, I really like that, like, the sort of portal isn't, like, I don't know, it looks like it's a weird way to, I don't know how to describe exactly what I'm trying to say, but it's not like a crazy abstract thing, right? It's like a tunnel. It's like a tunnel that dogs go through in dog shows, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how to describe that kind of tunnel, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, just a fabric tunnel.
Yeah, and they don't, like, try to make it, like, this big abstract thing where it's like they go in there and there's all these crazy effects inside.
Yeah.
It sort of, like, it makes, like, the opposite side feels sort of crafty in its own kind of way, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like that tunnel is, like, kind of part of it, right? It's not like this big supernatural thing. It's just like this, it's like it was built by somebody, by a puppeteer or a craftsman.
By a crazy spider lady.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the way that they have, like, that slow transition of the other mother, that, like, how she, like, slowly, like, gets, like, skinnier and weirder and more spindly is, like, really effective. And, like, how they make the other mother, like, always feel just a little bit off, even when she's being very nice, I think is so well done. Like, every time they're at a scene where, like, the other family is eating, like, the other mother never has any food on her plate. Like, we don't see her eat anything. Like, just little things like that.
I was gonna say, I made a note of how, like, the reality in this movie is, like, you know, pretty straightforward. Like, there's nothing super crazy about it, except for their neighbor who's 12 years old and has a motorcycle and a weird microscope helmet.
Yeah,
that's a little weird.
Well, Wybie's supposed to be weird.
I know.
Wybie's a weirdo. but like, God, the way that they animate Wybie is so good. Like, all of Wybie's, like, character, like, animations, like, just the way he, like, moves his arm and, like, keeps his shoulder up, like, he's animated so well.
Right.
Like, you immediately just get the weird kid vibe from him because he's a freaking weirdo. But yeah, they totally nail it.
Right. And I spent a little bit of time, something that I am trying to work on in this podcast particularly is, like, I don't want to spend so much time, like, talking about little tiny minute details because I feel like they're obvious. Like, I want to talk more about, like, the movie in terms of, like, the big picture, you know? but as a result, when I was watching it this time, I felt myself, especially since I'd never seen it before. It was my first time seeing it. Just like trying to figure out, like, get to the core of it. Like, what's it about? What's it saying? Right. And it took me a little bit to figure it out. Because at first it's just like, I thought it was just going to be sort of like a haunting, you know, like they move into this creepy new house. All the neighbors are creepy and like something bad's going to happen. Right. But like, I was weirdly, cause like the family, like the place is weird in general. She goes and meets that weird acrobat guy and he's kind of creepy and says cryptic things. And you're like, I'm not into that.
Hey, this dude.
But then,
why
like,
is he blue?
Yeah, but then she like meets those two actresses, and they seem pretty straightforward, you know.
Yeah.
Like you walk in there and you pretty much get it, you know. They're like these
Yeah,
eccentric
like,
old ladies who used to be these like beautiful showgirls and still sort of act that same way. Even now, they're like old and grotesque stop motion figures.
Yeah.
But like, and they're kind of eccentric, but that's just the way they are because they used to be these showgirls. And I was just like. Yeah, they're not creepy. Like, I get them.
I like these old ladies.
Yeah. So, and that's kind of where I was at that point. But then the moment when it all sort of clicked into place was like when she's in the Upside Down and she's like, oh, this world is so great. I love my parents in this world. It's all so cool. And they're like, oh, and here's our version of Wybie. Don't you like him so much? He doesn't talk at all. And then I was like, oh, I get it.
Ooh, yeah.
Like, it's just like everything came into stark relief. It's like, oh, this is all about her. This is like a world where like everything that she wants for other people to be, they just are. And everything, like, people are like molded to her will, sort of, you know?
And to be fair, it's not Coraline doing that. It's the other mother doing that because she knows it'll make Coraline happy. But yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, there's a part of me that almost wishes that, like, the mother wasn't, like, the evil, malevolent force. I almost wish that, like, they truly do just want to, like, make her happy, but it's, like, she just learns for herself that, like, if everything's perfect, it means that everybody around me has no free will and they will be unhappy, you know?
Yeah.
And they still get at that same general message, but I kind of wish that it was, like, a little less black and white.
Was like the main message instead of just a side one.
Exactly.
I mean, yeah. The movie wouldn't be as scary, though.
That's true. No, that's very much true.
Yeah. I mean, if it was just about Coraline learning a lesson, and when she learned that lesson, like, especially, like, in a situation where, like, there is no evil, like, everything that's gone wrong has just been good intentions gone wrong, like, a lot of fear would be gone that is there because there is a malevolent evil being.
Right. And I also want to say, I think there's something to be said here, just as far as my own personal reading, about, like, the way that we interact with art also. Because, like, her two neighbors are both like artists in their own way, right? Like the one guy is like an acrobat circus performer, and the two women are like these showgirls who like put on these shows. But Coraline clearly isn't into either of them, right? She's like, oh man, this is so dumb, and I kind of don't like them because I don't like their stuff. I wish they would make stuff that I like. And then when she goes into the other world, they're like doing stuff that she's really into because it's like targeted specifically at her, you know? And she's like, hooray, yes, now your work has value, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I think that, you know, and I don't know, you could argue that it's not as black and white as that and it wasn't necessarily part of the intention, but I got that vibe from it a little bit. This sort of like, I don't care about anything unless it's directed at me. Like, everyone should just be doing the stuff that I like, you know?
And I mean, yeah, and I mean, it all just comes back to, like, Coraline is selfish. And we talked about this with The Conjuring a little bit. Like, you're in it's the same moving situation where the parents are stressed out and the kids, like, don't understand why. But in The Conjuring, the kids kind of just, like, ignore it while Coraline feels ignored herself and she gets angry about it.
Right.
And what I really like about this movie is that at the beginning of the movie, they really show you why Coraline thinks that. Like, they have the parents, like, kind of ignoring her and telling her to do things because they're stressed out and they're trying to do things. But then as we move on, and then when the parents are less stressed out and they're trying to be nice to Coraline and they're trying to, like, do family things, and Coraline is still so mad and won't talk to them and doesn't like that things aren't going exactly her way, and then you kind of realize, oh, this is about Coraline being selfish. This isn't about...
Right,
This isn't about how terrible her parents are.
No, yeah, I mean, her whole, like, arc in this movie is basically just learning that, like, everybody else in the world also exists and everything isn't just in service of me, right? Like, they have their own lives and responsibilities and stuff. I love the fact that her parents are, like, gardening journalists.
Yeah,
like,
because what the heck?
I know, it's like such a weirdly specific career that there's something really satisfying about it. Like, seeing it, it's not like, oh, if this was a Tim Burton movie, it would be like, oh, the dad works at a big company and has a desk job, and it'd be like really abstract, you know?
He only cares about money bags.
Exactly, yeah. But he would, like, be wearing, like, a blue shirt with a white collar and suspenders, and he'd go to work every day, and, like, that would be the Tim Burton version of this.
Yeah. Let's make the Tim Burton version of this movie.
But it would be, like, on purpose. It wouldn't be, like, hack. It would be, like, heightened, like, exaggeration of this trope, you know?
Yeah.
But, like, I don't know. There's something that feels so good about it. And really, that's not Henry Selick. That's Neil Gaiman, because I'm sure that's the way it was in the book. But it's, like...
Oh, yeah.
It's just, I don't know, it's really cool. It feels almost like this slice of life of, like, these people you haven't necessarily really heard from in pop culture, you know? This, like, highly specialized job. Specialized job. There's a moment where they finally, like, present her with the buttons. Where they're like, we can just do it, no problem. And there's this line where the dad says, like, here's this needle, it's so sharp you won't feel a thing. Which is a great fucking line. And I remember that he uses almost the exact same line in American Gods. There's a moment where, like, he's, like, because the main character, basically the whole, like, one of the whole things in American Gods.
Yeah, explain the plot of American Gods.
But, like, it's just, like, the main character is just, like, deeply depressed the whole movie. Or the whole book, I should say. There is no movie. I don't know why I said movie. The whole book, the main character is, like, deeply depressed. And there's this quick moment where he's, like, thinking to himself about a lot of things while he's shaving. And then he, like, cuts himself shaving, but he doesn't quite notice it. And there's just, like, this little bit of his internal monologue where he just says, like, so sharp you don't feel a thing. And I was like, oh, fuck. Like, it, like, really clearly and really succinctly, like, puts the idea in your head that he's thinking about suicide, like, all the time.
Yeah.
And you're like, fuck. Like, that's really intense. And it just called back to that because it's the same author, like, using almost the same line in different circumstances. I thought that was really interesting.
And, I mean, I don't think Coraline is a metaphor for suicide. I think it is, what is presented to her is kind of an easy out. You don't enjoy your life, so let's do this instead, you know?
Right.
So, like, I think that line is kind of being used in the same way, actually, when the dad's like, it's so sharp you won't even feel it. It's like, oh, this is so much easier than doing whatever you were doing in your real life, you know?
Right, yeah. And, you know, I don't know, I think that there could be shades
if I was some woke internet nerd, I'd be like, did you know that Coraline is actually about suicide? Childhood ruined. God, I hate those stupid theories.
Yeah. I don't know, the more I have been, like, really actively engaging in, like, film criticism, the more I think that, like, you know... not that, like, death of the author is the only way to go, but it's, like, that sort of, like, metaphor for suicide may or may not have been, like, the intention of it, but I still think it's, like, interesting to think about, you know? Like, it sort of applies and it kind of makes sense, and there's a thematic tie between Neil Gaiman's work with that sort of, especially with that line particularly, but with this, like, just idea, and I think it's a shade of the movie, intentionally or unintentionally, I think, that is like, you could just go live in this world and, like, be loved by this creepy mom, but, like, have none of the things that make life actually interesting.
Yeah,
it just feels like, it's like you said, it's just like this easy way out that I think this movie, I think that the story sort of engages with in an intentional way, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. I guess I mean, it's when you have ideas like that, it's all about how you present them. Because if you're like, oh, I interpret this thing, even if I don't think this is like the actual, like the intended interpretation, I can like see it this way or can interpret it this way.
Right.
And you're like, oh, that's really interesting to think about. And then there's all of the Rugrats are in a coma, childhood ruined.
Exactly,
like there's just, you gotta, come on, people.
I know. Okay, I'm just gonna point out some like little things in this movie that I think kick ass, just like design wise.
Yeah.
Spider-Mom's great, but
Spider-Mom's
like particularly the like needle hands, I think are the coolest shit in the world. Like there's something that's so tactile about them. Like I just want to like touch them and feel
design.
them.
Like the sound design is so good.
Literally, this is so weird, but like the immediate thought that I had at that bit at the end where she's like running away and she like shuts the door and like one of the hands comes off and she just runs away from it. I was like, no, keep it. It's cool.
keep the spooky hand.
In my head, I was just like, oh fuck, no, keep it. Like if it was me, I would have kept it because I wanna touch it and feel it.
I wanna touch it. I wanna do it. I went to the Leica exhibit when it came to Seattle.
Did they have the needle hands?
They didn't have. They had part of the set for the doll making scene. I don't think they had They had the needle hands, but they had the actual. Well, one of the actual sets of the Coraline face garden, and that thing was huge and awesome.
That
like
sounds super cool.
It was like in this big warehouse room, and it took up a big part of the room, and it was just so cool to look at.
Right. Other thing I love the bug furniture.
Mm-hmm.
I think the bug furniture is great.
Yeah, I don't know why it's there. I guess it's because it's like her room, so she's like a spider, so it's like, okay. Because then when the floor... Oh, I do know why it's there. It doesn't have to be there until the floor collapses into a spider web. And
exactly, that was the other thing I was going to say.
That was cool.
And there's that moment where, like, she like, pokes her eyes out. Or no, what happens with her eyes? It's...
The cat scratches her eyes out.
Right, yeah. The cat scratches her eyes out. And then, like, she... is like climbing away, but then there's this moment where she like feels her vibrations in the web like a real spider and then goes after her. I was like, this is perfect. This is so great.
Ooh, good shit.
The ghosts are fucking creepy as fuck and I love them.
Oh, they're so well. Oh, dude, they do so many cool animation things with the ghosts. Like even when they're like quote unquote saved too.
Right.
Like when they're like ghosts and they have that like effect where they're like they're moving like 2 frames per second. Like they've got a much slower frame rate than Coraline does, and they have like this effect where they like kind of smear around and like they glow more when they're talking, and when they stop talking they like kind of fade a little bit. Like it's so good
because it's like there's something really unsettling about it. Like it's really, really uncanny, but in like a really creative and distinct way, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's because with stop motion, it's like kind of like the ultimate like separation of reality. What's it when you accept that reality is not like you're accepting a reality of a movie? Suspension of disbelief.
Right.
It's like stop motion is like the ultimate suspension of disbelief because you know that they are just puppets because you're looking at them. But at this point in the movie, you're so invested that, like, you've completely accepted that reality of this is what the world looks like. And so to then take this reality that we've accepted and then to, like, kind of change it it makes you uncomfortable because it, like...
totally.
It doesn't contradict the reality. It just kind of... It weirdly, like, draws your attention back to the fact that it's just stop motion. But, like, you're so invested in the reality, it just makes the reality, like, skewed. And it's very good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm trying to think of other ways. I really love at the end when she's like gathering those little orbs and like they never reference it at all, but it's just like it is the ticking clock, I guess. That when you see it, you're just like, oh, I guess that's the time limit. Sure.
Yeah, you get it. We didn't need to say anything.
Exactly, yeah. But it's like this button that's like blocking out the moon. I think it's so cool. It's like just visually, good. It's a really fun and creative idea.
I love the cat's voice actor. I can't remember his name. He also voices the villain in The Princess and the Frog.
Right.
But, God, I don't know. Something about having that cat talking like that deep, like, scratchy voice is just, like, so nice. Like, it just fits in so well.
It's, like, weirdly, like, really sort of incongruous to what a cat you imagine it would sound like, but also like really
makes a lot of sense.
Right? Yeah, it's like somehow simultaneously wrong and perfect at the same time. It's weird.
Yeah.
But so okay, here's my absolute biggest criticism of this movie. Is that like in terms of like the moment to moment intrigue and the like broader emotional stakes, like the whole movie is perfectly readable and perfectly understandable, right? Mm-hmm. But a lot of the nitty gritty stuff is just like really frustratingly explained. Like the whole dolls thing didn't quite click all the way. It's like, oh yeah, the mom made dolls of whoever is her next target, maybe, but then why was there a doll of the parents? Whatever. And then it was like all the ghosts are like manifested into these little balls that are like different kinds of balls, but for some reason they're all balls still. Like,
hey Jackson, say balls some more.
But it's just like for some reason they are like all manifested into these like totems that are all of them are balls for no reason.
Because they took their eyes, but we couldn't use real eyes because that would be hella creepy. So
you're saying
these round objects.
So you're saying that the kids' eyes were the knobs from a gear shift, and
yes, no, literally, she says I have to go find the kids' eyes. Not literally, of course, but you know.
Okay.
I don't think all of these children had glass eyes.
You know, and like I said, the emotional stakes are there and make total sense. It's just that, like, I don't know. For me, I found myself just being like, okay, whatever. In order for her to save her parents, she has to find these 3 magical stones, whatever. Like, it's just like, I don't know. It feels really just poorly explained, and it, like, took me out of it a couple of times because I was like, why is this that way?
I kind of agree with you, but not about her having to find the eyes, but with that little triangle spiderwick thing that she has to use.
Yeah, that's part of it too, yeah.
That was the weird part for me. Like, it made sense in, like, the kind of the fantasy of it, like, the kind of, like, there are rules to these kinds of things. This is just one of those things. Like, that made sense, but it's just how it was used was just kind of stupid. It was like, okay, you can look through this, and you see exactly what you need to find, and that's how you find the things. And I was like, great. But then she, like, loses it, then we never see it again. Like, okay, great, cool.
Right. Yeah, anyway, but I just felt like it needed to be said because that was like, because I really, really liked this movie, but that was the biggest thing that like really stuck in my craw when I was done with it.
Yeah, don't talk about your craw.
Look, don't body shame me. I have a craw just like anybody else.
Anyway.
If a woman was talking about her craw, you'd be like, oh, she's so brave.
Okay.
Do you not like this joke?
I just don't think it's that funny. We can keep going, though.
Okay, I can keep talking about craws for as long as you want
apparently.
me to.
You've got material prepared.
What is a craw, actually?
It's one of those old-timey things. I think it's your brain.
No, that can't be right.
Well, it's like when you've got something... Well, you've got something stuck in your craw, that means, like, something's bothering you.
Right, I know that.
Yeah.
But, like, for some reason when I was a kid, like, the imagery it always conjured up was, like, when you were running and you got, like, a cramp in your side.
That's because of Homestar Runner, though.
Yeah, I think you're actually maybe right.
Homestar Runner gets something stuck in his craw. Anyway. A brand new dog shirt.
There's this great moment. Is it cool for us to jump to, like, near the end, or is there other stuff, like, throughout that you want to talk about?
I mean, I just wanted to talk about that, the whole scene where she's going to get the eyes, and, like, all of the nice things have suddenly turned evil, and just how, God, how scary they are. Like, the 2 old ladies, like, entwined in, like, that weird womb, like, candy wrapper, and she has to, like, they're, like, made out of candy. Like, it's so good. It's so scary.
Yeah.
And then you have Mr. B, who's just a pile of rats that runs around. Is so good.
In true Henry Selick fashion.
Yeah, it's so good.
And yeah, this is, like, part of my big argument about this just being a horror movie, right? Like, this sequence especially. Like, that sort of plot device in any other genre of movie would just be boring as shit. It's like Ocarina of Time, right? It's like, oh, and now you have to find the 3 mystical stones in 3 different trials.
The 3 magic things.
Exactly, yeah.
I mean, well, this is just what we talk about in horror video games all the time. This is collect the 3 spooky things and come back for a scary surprise.
Right.
Like, that's what it is.
Yeah, but it's like, in a horror movie, you could do this kind of thing because it's just a plot device that, like, sets you up for, like, different scenarios.
You get places.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It sets you up to be like, okay, so just, like, know for the next 20 minutes what we're going to do is we're going to do 3 different things, and there's going to be 3 scary things that happen, and you're going to enjoy it. That's totally the way both of the It movies are. That's the way, like, sort of the I guess, I don't know. The Conjuring isn't really like that. I was just thinking that there's a whole bunch of scary things in a row, but, like... Just this idea
of it's a horror movie.
Yeah, but it's just like horror movies. A lot of them have this idea of like, for a bit, it becomes sort of episodic, right? Like there's no like true through line. It's just like, here's 3 things. They're gonna be scary, and then we'll move on to whatever we want to do other than that. But it's like for this moment, we're just gonna like have this like really generic sort of easy plot point just to let us do 3 scary things.
Yeah, we've got 3 really cool ideas, and we're just let us do it, and then we'll get back to the plot.
Right. And what I like about this movie is that, like, after she does this whole thing and learns her whole lesson, right? She doesn't, like, fix her parents.
No.
Like, her parents do get better and they, like, get through to the other side of this thing. But the message is, like, patience, right? Like, everybody has their own shit going on, and sometimes they don't have time for you, and that's okay. They will again soon. Like,
I was gonna say, literally, the whole reason why her parents are ignoring her and why she's feeling abandoned is because they're moving and they're under a lot of stress.
Right.
And literally, once they're, like, all unpacked, that stress goes away and everything goes back to normal. So, literally, it's just, like, you gotta... Sometimes people don't have time.
You just gotta wait, and eventually they will, and you'll have a moment that you can look back on, you know? There's also... I really love the moment where, like, it seems like she's won, and, like, everything's perfect, and there's that moment where she chops off the hand, and then she, like, runs through the tunnel, and, like, there's that great shot where, like, every time she, like, pounds on the door, like, the tunnel,
gets
like,
closer.
Yeah, the tunnel is, like, compacting itself.
So good.
It's so great. But, like, the tone after she, like, closes the door and locks it, and it's like, boo, we did it, we won. It doesn't feel like that, though. Mm-hmm. It's like, you just keep expecting, like, her to, like, jump out of it, but she, like, never quite does. Like, it doesn't, it makes it, like, really clear to you as a viewer that, like, everything isn't fixed quite yet. Like, it seems like it is, but we're not giving you the, like, triumphant music and a smile on her face quite yet. Like, you're still kind of tense and suspenseful, you know?
And I mean, that's a really cool moment when she does free the kids, and they're like, thank you, and she's like, are we all done? And they're like, no, you were in a terrible, terrible situation. It's like, it's this, like... I really like the idea that, like, this is not an evil that you can just defeat. Like, even if you throw away the key, the Beldam's always gonna be there, you know? Right. Like, I feel like it's that, like, we do kind of get, like, the happy, like, zoom out into the sunset kind of shot because, like, she has done all that she can do.
Right.
Like, she's dropped a key down the well, and that pretty much means that the Beldam can't get to it. But, like, the Beldam is still there. Like, that ultimate evil is still there.
It still exists. I mean, yeah, because even, like, well into adulthood, a lot of people can like, internally or, you know, externally, but, like, are selfish sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
Like, there are moments in life where I'm just like, God damn it. Like, I wish this person would just, like... do whatever I want them to do.
Yeah.
But you have to like catch yourself, you know, and you have to be like, oh, well, actually they have a big complicated life just like you do, and they don't revolve around you know?
Yeah.
It just, yeah, like, you don't, like, fix it forever. When you grow up, you're not just like, oh, now I know that people are people, and so that's
now
just
I am never
fixed within
selfish
me.
ever.
Exactly, yeah. Okay, I do have to say, though, I could have done without the cat disappearing like the fucking Cheshire Cat right before the credits.
Well, I didn't get that because the reason that the cat like could go in between these two worlds because he's a cat. That's fine. We've established that. But at the end of the movie, she has destroyed that whole world completely. because we see it destroyed until it's just the house, and the house kind of falls apart too. So is that cat just going to that, like, one SpongeBob episode White Space to hang out? Like, where's he going?
Yeah. I don't know. It's just weird, and they, like, weirdly...
I'm going to hang out in the end of the world.
Yeah, they suddenly,
why?
like,
Why,
imply
Mr. Cat?
that he has magical powers, and you're like, no, he doesn't. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah. I don't know.
Anyway, good movie all around, though.
Good movie. Weird cat. Good movie.
Okay, do you want to start moving into our secondary zone?
Yeah. Welcome to the secondary zone.
So, okay, super quick. We haven't discussed this yet, but
We haven't.
one of the things that I was thinking we could talk about was there's a whole big thing about Robert Downey Jr. explicitly saying he doesn't want a Best Actor nomination for Endgame. Does that sound interesting to you?
I mean, it's just gonna be me complaining about the Oscars.
Okay, let's see. I'm just looking through Screen Rant, seeing what's fresh. How about Thor's top 10 saddest moments in the MCU ranked? Do you want to talk about that?
Wait, Thor made this list?
No, the saddest things that have happened to Thor.
Wait, is that actually what it is?
Yes, Thor's 10 saddest moments in the MCU ranked. Do you want to hear what they are?
Sure.
Okay, let's go. 10, Frigga's funeral. Okay, bad start already. His mom died.
Start.
Number 10.
God, I wish Freya wasn't actually a character in those movies, because she's really not, and it makes me mad.
Maybe this should be our new secondary segment. It's just reading a terrible list of ranked pop culture
Someone's
things.
stupid media opinions.
Okay, number 9, Odin's death. I guess that tracks.
What's number 1? Wait, Loki died.
Okay,
they're in love.
So here's number 8.
Yeah.
This is much sadder than both of his parents dying.
Yeah.
Losing his eye and finding himself outmatched by Hela.
Stupid. Stupid.
Number 7 is when Loki dies. Okay, fair. Number 6 is when he says, if I'm wrong, then what more could I lose? Which is, I guess, pretty sad, but, like, that's not the sad
than
part.
Your mom dying.
It's just, like, yeah, it's like that moment is, like, him reacting to the previous sad things. Like, that moment in and of itself is not the sad part. Whatever. Number 5, I get. Number 5, realizing Thanos won because of his error. It's fair.
Yeah, fair.
We still got 5 more to go, though, and I have no idea what they could possibly be.
Where are we going?
When he... Okay, you know what? I like this. When he chops off Thanos' head. That's very sad.
That's a good one.
Because it, like, doesn't actually fix anything.
Yeah, it's just, like, this moment of desperation.
Number 3 is when Hulk says Thanos and he says, don't say that name.
Nope, incorrect.
Nope, not sadder than anything on this list.
Incorrect.
Okay, number 2 is when he gets to talk to his mom again, which is like, okay.
That's not sad, though.
I wouldn't call it sad. I would call it, like, bittersweet.
Yeah.
There's that moment. Wait, okay, here's number 1.
So wait, just to be, the least sad thing is his mom dying, but the second most sad thing is him talking to his mom again.
Right. And here's number 1.
Off.
Are you ready?
Yes.
This is the number 1 saddest thing that has ever happened to Thor.
Yep.
Remember that moment in Endgame where they're like, who should wear the gauntlet? And Thor's like, it should be me, please. I wanna be helpful.
Yeah.
That's it.
God,
but
that's tied to other things that happened to Thor.
It's just a reaction to it.
Yeah, God.
Hold on. Okay, we can keep this in. Go ahead.
I know that people love Thor. I also enjoy Thor. But, God, he, like, even in the MCU, he's been, like, mischaracterized and been in so many shitty movies that it's like...
Yeah.
God, like, I don't, like, if you ask me, like, who is, like, the worst written character in the MCU, I would say Thor, because Thor 1 and Thor 2 suck. They are bad movies. I do not like them. Thor Ragnarok kicks all hell, but, like, that's everything else is really bad.
I like kicks all hell. But, like, I don't know. I really like the arc that they did for Thor between Ragnarok and Endgame, right?
Yeah.
I feel like they fucked it up at, like, the last second, though, right?
Yeah.
Like, first of all, Thor should have killed Thanos.
Yeah.
I think if I were writing it, I would have Thor like actually kill Thanos and then Tony snaps and disappears his whole army. That's what I would have happen. First things first. Like, give him some kind of actual catharsis is important.
Yeah.
2, he should just be king of Asgard.
Yes, god fucking damn
Like,
it.
why-
Thor should be the king of Asgard, and Valkyrie should be She-Hulk, not freaking whatever the fuck
She-Hulk?
her name is. Not She-Hulk, She-Thor, sorry. Listen,
Okay.
if they can't come up with names for their freaking female superheroes, then I won't remember them.
Okay, you're gonna keep being mad about Natalie Portman being in Thor 4, and I'm gonna keep
God.
not retweeting you because I don't agree.
I name a good movie that Natalie Portman has been in.
What are you talking about, Adeline?
Name one.
Okay, Black Swan.
Fine.
Hold on. Just a second. Natalie Portman has a long and illustrious career.
I just think she's a very vanilla person.
Hold on. I mean, she's bad in the things that she's bad in. You could say that about a lot of actors.
My problem, I guess, isn't Natalie Portman. My problem is Natalie Portman in the MCU, because she's been done a bad job in the MCU.
Right. Okay, let's take a look here. Black Swan, Annihilation, V for Vendetta, Heat, which is like widely regarded as one of the best movies of all time. Natalie Portman.
What is Heat? I've never heard of Heat.
It's this movie from the 90s that Michael Mann directed that's about like mobsters and cops, and it's got Al Pacino and Robert De Niro, and I don't know, it's one of those like film critic movies.
Yeah.
It's like not like popular like the general public, but like among movie buffs, it's like, oh, Heat's like the best movie anybody's ever made.
Heat.
I'm cherry picking some more examples. Mars Attacks, Adeline.
She's the alien in Mars Attacks?
Is she?
No, I don't know.
Who is she in Mars Attacks?
I don't know. I haven't seen Mars Attacks.
Oh, I thought that you had.
No, I just have a lot of opinions about it.
Okay, cool. Anyway, yeah, that's all I'm saying. Is like I'm very excited for Natalie Portman because I think, much like how Thor previously sucked, I trust Marvel now that they've got like a better handle on like that world and those characters, like that they will make her not suck anymore.
God, yeah, just Jane's whole character is just so boring. She's just Thor's girlfriend, and she doesn't do anything ever. And God, I hate her.
But also, Thor's whole character was also boring before too.
Yeah, but I don't like her.
Okay.
Listen, you're trying to make me friends with Jane. What's her name? Jane Foster.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be friends with her.
Okay. I'm just saying. That's all I'm saying. Is I'm never gonna retweet you.
Okay.
I'll never put that on my Twitter feed. It'll never happen.
But like, have you watched Thor 2 recently?
Yeah, I don't think Thor 2 is that bad.
I watched Thor 2. I did not enjoy it. I did not like it.
Would you rather just read a list that's called the top 10 worst things Tom Haverford has ever done?
Why are we still talking about Parks and Rec?
Tom Haverford from Parks and Rec. Okay, we're diving in. Number 10. He did what benefited him at Leslie's meet and greet.
Oh, that's
which was the plot of that episode. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but okay.
Number 9. He made fun of Jerry's heart attack.
Okay.
Number 8. He hid the fact that he shot Ron in the head. Literally, this entire list is just like every time there's a plot point in the show where he does something that hurts someone and then he learns from it by the end of the episode, they're just putting it in this list.
Yeah, God, I can't believe you stand Tom Haverford, Jackson. Why are you so problematic?
An expose.
Yeah, it just feels like we're calling out Tom Haverford, and that's not the point of the character.
No. Okay, I tweeted about this already. But there's this whole thing in like listicle movie journalism right now where like top 10 worst things a character has ever done are for some reason huge right now.
Yeah, why are we making call out posts for people who aren't even real?
Yeah, and I hate it. It's just like
Maybe it's because we've kind of figured out that call-out posts suck and are not productive in any way, shape, or form. At least some part of society has realized that. But they still enjoy calling people out, so they've just moved to fictional characters instead.
But here's the thing, is like, because when it started, it was like morally ambiguous characters, right? It was like, top 10 worst things Deadpool's ever done, worst things Walter White has ever done, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because they're like morally gray. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And I can kind of like almost...
I can at least understand those.
Yeah. Because, like, but for some reason, like, so much of this, like, listicle culture is about, like, ranking things, and you gotta know all the things about this, or you're not a true fan. So it's like, aren't you glad that we told you this stuff about your favorite movie? Because otherwise, you would have been embarrassed that you didn't know it, you know?
Yeah, every once in a while, one of my friends will send me, like, top 10 facts about The Nightmare Before Christmas, and I'm like, you fucking fools don't think I already know all of these things.
But it's like, your ability to like that thing shouldn't be dependent on you knowing all those things.
Exactly. But these aren't even like did you know things. These are just things that happened in the thing that you've already seen because you clicked on this article.
It's like that. It's totally a product of like gatekeeping, because it's just like, here's how to catch up so people can't tell you don't actually like that thing as much as you do.
Yeah. It's stupid.
Yeah, but anyway, like I said, and now it's like that's just gotten enough clicks when it kind of made sense that now it's fucking Tom Haverford from Parks and Rec. Sense. Yeah. And I want to be a film journalist, so I shouldn't get too angry about this because I will lose myself jobs. But like,
you're gonna be the one who has to do this.
It's so
Jackson,
asinine.
Right now, I need you to tell me the top 10 worst things that Coraline does.
Okay, top 10 worst things Coraline has ever done. Are you ready? Number 10, she chops off her fake mom's hand. It's mostly okay because she's evil, but still, I guess she didn't really have to do that, and now she doesn't have a hand, you know?
Yeah.
Number 9, she gets poison oak. And if she paid attention in class at school, she would probably know more about poison oak. So we can infer that she's a disruptive influence.
Yeah, it's a telltale sign.
Number 8, she was rude about how bad Mr. B's cheese smelled.
It's fucking cheese. It's what it smells like.
Number 7, she burns a doll that I think belonged to somebody. I don't know. I didn't see the movie.
And, like, it is an instrument of evil, but, like, that's someone else's doll.
Number 6, she breaks her parents' snow globe. That's messed up. Number 5, Number 5, she's very rude to Wybie for just being himself, even though he's kind of weird. And we should be inclusive of all colors and creeds in the 21st century, Coraline. Number 4. She's very rude to her parents. Hey, Coraline, don't you understand that your parents are just doing their best? You could afford to be a little bit kinder to people who are obviously very stressed.
See, you're not screen sharing with me right now. So, for all I know, you could have just actually Googled top 10 worst things that Coraline has done, and you could just be reading an article.
Do you think that exists? Okay, after I finish this, I'm gonna see if it exists.
Okay.
Number 3, she body shames 2 women in the movie. She laughs when 2 women take off their clothes, implying that somehow it's funny that they have horrible bodies.
Do you think that's funny?
Do you think that's funny, Coraline? Number 2, she throws a cat at a monster without his consent. And number 1, she kills her fake dad, even though it's kind of implied that he's not really that evil, and he just likes her. Don't you know that you shouldn't kill people who you don't think are evil, probably? I don't know. It's a little vague. Top 10 worst things Coraline's fake dad has ever done. Okay, now I'm going to Google worst things Coraline has ever done. No, first thing that comes up is top 10 worst things Spider-Man has ever done, so I think we're safe.
Oh no, let's call it Spider-Man.
That's a YouTube video, I can't do it. Anyway,
God.
So I guess that was our relevant conversation for this time, is fucking horrible listicles.
Listen, it's not our fault. It's the world's fault for not being interesting enough.
Hey, Adeline, do you want to hear a 5-star review of Coraline?
Yeah, I do.
This review is from Letterboxd user Dio_, who says, "Scariest movie I've ever seen. What the fuck is wrong with Tim Burton?"
Unrelated.
Hey, my name's Jackson McMurray.
My name's Adeline McMurray.
And this is No Notes Allowed.
And there are no ghouls allowed.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I forgot we were doing that. No ghoul. Whatever.
No fucking whatever. Ghosts. I don't give a shit. I like to believe that the comment is like 2 separate thoughts. It's like, oh, this movie's really scary.
Yeah.
What the hell's up with Tim Burton? Just like period.
What the fuck
New
is wrong with
statement.
Tim Burton? Why hasn't he made a good movie since?
God, so long.